Circle of Hope pastors are here. Ben, Julie, Johnny, and Rachel. We're in the middle of our, this is a someone asked videocast here, but as a church, we're asking big questions together and trying to collect questions. And on Sunday, the pastors didn't ask me anything. And someone asked, how does Circle of Hope develop a culture of peace in a war-torn world? And I thought that was a really good question because we're real peace people. How do we do that, y'all?
I remember. Okay. No, you go first, Julie.
We got a lot of stories here.
I was just going to say, last month we gathered outside the immigration office, the Philadelphia immigration office, protesting the treatment of immigrants at our borders and detention centers.
Yeah, and there were like 30 of us there. You know, our compassion team put out the call on one of our listservs, and then 30 people show up. You know, we were probably the largest group represented there.
Totally.
I don't know, but it seemed like it. But I was going to say, I remember the Circle of Peacemakers led us last Good Friday at the Horsham drone base up north of Philadelphia, where they fly drones in the Middle East and blow people up. And we were prophetically looking for resurrection life, even in that place of death. We were saying we were dead in the grave with Jesus and with all these people. So that was another thing we did that was even part of our worship.
And on the anniversary of Michael Brown's death, Michael Brown was a resident of St. Louis that was killed by a police officer. We gathered around a potential new location for the Philadelphia Police's headquarters to kind of welcome them in and say to them, Black Lives Matter. And we had a candlelit observance around there, worshiping and really speaking the truth to power. That was an inspiring moment.
Yeah, that was on the first anniversary of his death. And which anniversary was it that just passed? It's been 4 years, something like that.
I think it's even longer than that.
6 years, but it was just last week, right?
Yeah, Trayvon was 2010, I think. So we've been dealing with this violence for a while.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Yeah, there's a lot of gun violence right here in our city. So we've been concerned about it locally too. And I'm thinking about how, by the grace of God, we were able to shut down Colosimo's gun shop. We were there regularly protesting for a while. And then finally we were it was taken to court, and Mr. Colosimo had to shut down his shop because he wouldn't sign this, basic code of conduct that was going to help prevent these guns from getting onto the streets.
And his gun shop was linked to so many gun-related murders. Mm-hmm. So many weapons of murder came directly out of his shop. So it was a real victory.
Yep, through the straw purchasing that he was allowing.
Well, and the state of Pennsylvania allows with its laws. So that still needs to change. Keep working on it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about how all of this action and activism, it really matters, but at the same time, without a community in which we are ourselves working out the peaceable kingdom that Jesus, is making of us, then it really kind of becomes counterfeit action. So I think there is a lot we do to work for peace that shows up in tangible, little interpersonal life of our community together.
Salud, Rachel.
Thank you. I was thinking about that too, Julie. And that's hard work, because peace is not the avoidance of conflict and dialogue. And a lot of us have experienced violence, and we need to keep facing it in ourselves, and all the things that might divide us. I'm thinking racism, sexism, ageism.
Homophobia.
Yes, we have to talk about that and work it out together. If we're going to be a community, I think that can effectively make change in the world beyond us.
In such a violence oriented and violently filled society, it's hard to even live your life without incidentally being violent. And so our commitment to peace is not rooted in kind of a fundamentalist ethic where you need to act perfectly in order to be peaceful. We're going to do our best with what we can, with what we have in our community and outside of it. The force and really the propaganda that violence is an answer is so heavily and forcefully pushed upon us. We will talk back, but we also acknowledge that the United States' perversion and addiction to violence covers everything around us. And so it's a real battle against powers and principalities.
Yeah, and against ourselves too, because we have been trained effectively by that propaganda and by the history that is so common among human beings in every civilization.
Absolutely.
But probably coming to its peak in the U.S. Government, the capacity for killing and our apparent satisfaction with the way of things.
Yeah.
But Jesus is our peace. Jesus as the Prince of Peace, the one who calls us to be peacemakers, the one who calls us to love our enemies. I think that enemy love and peacemaking is the center of the gospel. It's what happens on the cross.
Literally what happens.
It's the new way of Jesus is at least an aspiration to die a sacrificial death, to be a living sacrifice. And no one wants to do that. I totally get why that's so hard. And that's why we need a community oriented around that crucified God that calls us to such radical love.
Yeah. And you're right, Ben, we have been so trained to fight and to be defended. And so being like Jesus in this way requires being aware of our defenses and how we try to protect ourselves from this dying that you're talking about.
And it's also intrinsic to who you are. We know we're not supposed to hurt each other. I mean, that's really basic to it, which is why the propaganda campaign that gives us the most armed state in the history of the world and the most armed populace ever needs to be so aggressive, because as radical as Christian enemy love is, peace is also really plainly moral.
Yeah, it's more human to love. We are not made to kill, and it has taken a great project of myth makers to get us to believe otherwise, but they've succeeded. And we're telling the alternative truth of Jesus in the face of great opposition, but we will not be deterred.
It's a good way to end.
Yeah, I think so too. It's a big topic. It's one of our favorite topics. So let's keep talking about peace and peacemaking. And send us more of your questions. We have a lot of opportunity over the next few weeks to answer them. So let's keep the dialogue going. See you next time.